So I'm Melissa Miller. I'm a science writer, science communicator. Today I'm chatting with Dr. David Shiffman about sharks. Hi, David.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
And we're gonna build some Lego sets. I have this cool 3-in-1 that is shark, squid, and anglerfish. And actually, there's instructions for a whale also. So a 4-in-1 really, but I'm gonna build the shark version of it. What are you working on, David?
I am working on the giant Lego research vessel here, and I've been working on it for several months. It is definitely the biggest Lego set I've ever built by far.
Cool. And that's actually a different Lego research vessel than the one I have. I realized once you
Huh.
showed it. I've got one from the Lego
Oh yeah,
City set.
you have the classic one. This one is 5 feet long when it's built.
Oh my
I,
gosh.
I'm
Okay.
actually not sure if I have anywhere to put it, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Well, now I understand why you were like, I'm not going to be able to finish it today. I was like, that's fine, that's
Oh
fair. But
yes,
yeah, if it's 5 feet
it is
long, I
it is this is instruction book number 3.
oh my goodness.
Uh, this is quite
Wow.
an operation.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like it's more of a sort of almost container ship looking research
Yeah,
vessel,
it's
which I have
big
been
and
on both
apparently it
types.
actually floats.
Cool.
I don't know where I will test that. Maybe my building's pool.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's a perfect spot to test it. Yeah, I haven't tested mine in the bathtub or anything like that. I think it said it floats, but I don't actually see that now. Um, but yeah, so my research vessel looks kind of more like the ones that I've been on as a
Hmm.
seagoing chemist. It's got like the crane and uh, all those sorts of things for like deploying instrumentation. I even made myself a little me using one of the like women in science chemistry sets. So there's like me holding some
Fantastic.
Erlenmeyer flasks for when I was doing
Yes,
chemistry.
I have a Lego me also, but it
Excellent.
was
Oh,
not.
of you in the shark suit. So I also made a Lego of me once I transitioned to a science communicator. So I also have a Lego with
Oh,
a
that's
camera
fantastic.
where I go around and I interview the scientists on the research vessel instead. So, well, I don't know if your research vessel came with any animals. Mine came with both a regular gray shark and a sawtooth fish. Is that right?
Sawfish, yes.
Sawfish?
So mine
Okay.
has a few options here. I have a stingray.
Cool.
I have a larger shark
Oh,
than one I've seen with from Legos elsewhere, and I also
yeah.
have the sawfish.
Cool. So the sawfish, I've been into the ocean since before I have memories, right? There's pictures of me at the Monterey Bay Aquarium as like a toddler, just having a grand old time. I
Yeah.
honestly learned about the sawfish from this Lego set when I got it like 6 years
Oh yeah.
ago.
They don't get the publicity they deserve for it's they were the first marine fish to gain Endangered Species Act protection in the US. We're coming up on the 30-year anniversary of that this year. They are some of the most endangered fish in the world. They're super cool. And yeah, no one knows anything about it.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. I was like, oh, haha, Lego going out and making a new fish that doesn't exist. And then I think I looked it up. And then within a year or two, I actually saw one in the, I think it's Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas that has a
Yes.
big
Hmm.
aquarium. And I saw them there and I was supposed to be out, clubbing with my girls. And I just like stayed there pressed against the glass staring at the sawfish because they're also huge. Like I didn't realize
Yes,
from the
they're
Lego
crazy
scale.
animals. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So,
can be 15 feet long plus. Uh,
right.
and the research team that I work with in South Florida catches them, though I've never been on the boat when they've caught one. I've only seen
Okay.
them in captivity.
And that's like a catching for tagging and tracking type
Yes.
program, or
But they don't. They are newly working on sawfish. They previously were working on sort of what sharks and rays are there in general, as well as a project on hammerhead sharks that I'm working on with them. And I'm happy to see that the Lego set, the logo for the research vessel is a little hammerhead face.
oh, that's awesome. Now, what's the difference between a hammerhead and a bonnethead shark? Because I have gotten corrected by that by like a 5-year-old kid at an aquarium before.
Yes, so bonnethead sharks are hammerhead sharks. They're
Oh,
all in the
okay.
same family. And
Okay.
bonnethead sharks are smaller than great scalloped or smooth hammerheads, which are typically what people are talking about when they're talking about hammerheads. The ones that you see a bajillion of them off the Galapagos, those are scalloped hammerheads. The ones that I
Okay.
work with in Florida are great hammerheads. Bonnetheads are in the same family. So your kingdom, phylum,
Okay.
class, order, family, genus, species, they're the same family, which is Spirinidae. Oh, and I forgot to get something off my shelf that I can get in a bit if we're curious, but I just got the
Okay.
new Wakanda Forever Um,
Yes.
Lisette, and it's Namor's throne, which is a megalodon jaw. So that was fun to make. But yeah, there are now officially sharks that exist in the MCU.
There we go. I like it. Excellent. Are you keeping track of things like that?
Oh, of course. I am a big enthusiast of sharks and popular culture stuff. You can follow hashtag sharks near me on Instagram to see, I think we're pushing 4 years now of me documenting that. And that's because a lot of my research is not field-based. I do some field work with the baby hammerheads in Florida, but a lot of what I do is not especially visual. And that means that my Instagram would not be especially exciting. So I've started doing
Ah,
things like I'm watching TV and there's a shark on that guy's t-shirt in the background of a TV show. And
right.
I found some doozies in there.
Right. And the Super Bowl commercials, since we just had the Super
Yes.
Bowl, this was the
Yes, you
first
were my
year.
hero last year with it. I thought that last year broke the stretch of having sharks in the Super Bowl commercials for consecutive years, but you pointed out that there was a shark in the GM commercial that I
That's
had
right.
missed. But this year there were in fact zero sharks breaking. We had 10 straight years of sharks in Super Bowl commercials, a streak that was sadly broken this year.
Yeah, I was
There were
wondering if maybe
dolphins.
someone's like local commercials, because there's that block during like halftime
Yes.
or whatever. Like maybe
Yeah, I don't
someone
count that,
somewhere got it, but
but probably someone did. They're still in lots of other commercials.
yeah.
I'm struggling to find a piece for my next step here.
I laid out all of the next like 20 or 30 steps of Legos.
This giant set, one advantage of it is everything is organized into smaller mini bags. So it's like 30 or 40 steps at a time, but there's 12 of those. So this is a
Wow.
significant undertaking.
Yeah, that's a lot. I've never built any of those big sets before.
I've
Yeah.
I've always liked Legos, and I like doing this now as a scientist when I have all these long-term ongoing projects, and like some of them it might be years before anything's actually done,
Mm.
and it's nice to like feel like I've completed something, you know?
Ah, yeah. It probably appeals to my sense of wanting control as well. I've definitely been
Yes.
building more and more of them in during the pandemic, I would say.
Yeah, I've never really like played with them when they're done, though we did. My brother and I had a spectacular monorail set back in the day that we
Me
built like going
too.
around our entire basement, and we
Yeah.
would alternate like what sort of scenes it would pass, and that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. That's yeah, you can't quite see it in my oh yeah, there up on top of my bookshelf
Oh yeah,
is
you've quite a few
all
there.
all my big Lego sets. And yeah, definitely building them. I also my brother and I also had the monorail as a kid. It was like it would go around our Christmas tree, like instead of like a train kind of
Yeah,
thing. And I
yeah.
definitely yeah, I love that one. And I wonder where that one is actually. That's one I would have again if we could find it. So I think that was like early days of Lego City, back before there were like licensed Lego
Right.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
So
it was electronic. It had a little 9-volt battery that powered it, and the monorail would go around the track. And we just bought so many extension packs for the track, so it was absolutely
oh,
massive where it went.
that's awesome. So I'm building like the
All right,
jaw of this shark, and it's reminding
nice.
me.
I'm
I mean,
I'm in
there's
the
just all
applying
these.
stickers phase.
Okay. There's all these like teeth pieces, obviously, teeth going all the way back on their top and bottom jaws. But don't sharks have like extra rows of teeth? That's at least not in this Lego set.
Yes, so that actually is kind of visible in the Namor jaw
Oh, cool.
thing. But yes, sharks have, they don't have hands and they can't go to the dentist. So if they get old and their teeth fall out, they can't eat. So sharks are
Ah,
constantly regrowing teeth throughout their entire lives. And this happens as this sort of conveyor belt system of new rows of teeth going forward as you just through time. So one shark can go through easily thousands of teeth in their lifetime.
that's wild. That definitely makes them look a little bit more intimidating, I would say, in terms of,
Yeah,
not necessarily something you want to see coming at you is 5 or 6 or whatever rows of teeth, but it makes sense that they just have them. They have basically all of their teeth right from the get-go. So that's interesting. I got confused here. I mounted the teeth upside down and was able to figure out, well, that's not what sharks look like. So I'll start paying better attention. There we go. Now the jaw fits. and it moves up and down too. Rawr. So for now I only have the front half, so it's kind of the like, I stepped on a Lego
Nice.
shark meme.
Oh, I do love that meme. That is just spectacular. So there are lots of shark memes, and I'm in a science meme group, and the shark team has almost placed in the top 10 this year for their fundraiser contest, the Wild Green memes. So it's been very funny for me to watch how sort of an offhanded comment I made got turned into a meme that got turned into a team contest that's raised thousands and thousands of dollars for, I believe, rainforest conservation. Oh, what are you doing here, Lego piece? Okay, great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Don't really know what part of the problem with these giant sets that I have is I don't really have a sense of what I'm working on until it's done. Oh, this might be the little mini submersible that's associated with the research vessel. Okay. It
Okay.
does have a little picture at the start that I just skimmed past.
Right, exactly. Those of us with let's just get to it sort of mindset. Because I started that too, because with the crab or with the shark comes a crab and a treasure chest. And I was like, well, I don't need to bother with that. I'm just working on the shark today. So it wanted me to start with
I
crab.
do have the little crab sitting on my end table. No, come back, little Lego piece. But yeah, I don't like, again, I'm almost 40. I don't play with these things. I like having them. I think they're cool office decor.
Right, exactly. And especially Zoom backgrounds now, it's like, well, now that that's a
Yeah,
thing, I gotta like curate mine, right?
absolutely.
So do you have a cage with your research vessel? I mean,
Yes.
that's something, I don't know if that's something that people use for research, but it's definitely like a tourism sort of thing is shark cage diving.
Yes, so I do I've worked on the past on sort of the conservation implications of wildlife tourism. Because with sharks in particular, their number one threat is unsustainable overfishing. And there are people in the tourism industry who have said, well, if we just make it so people want to go scuba diving with sharks instead of eating dead shark, that'll save
Mhm.
sharks. The phrase that you'll hear a lot is worth more alive than dead. And the problem is it's more complicated than that.
Okay.
In some cases, for one thing, the most threatened species of sharks, you can't build a wildlife tourism operation around them because imagine paying extra money to go travel to see something, but you don't see it because it's really rare.
Right.
Many of the threatened species of sharks live in the open ocean or in the deep sea where there's no scuba because no boats can go anywhere near there. And
Okay.
also, just from an equity perspective, worth more alive to whom? It's usually
Mm.
not the fishermen who lose money who are the ones who gain money from establishing the wildlife tourism. In the Bahamas, for example, a big problem that we have is that many of the wildlife tourism operations are run by Americans out of Florida. So the Bahamian shark fishermen who are losing out on money so that the Bahamas can be a shark sanctuary are not the people who are gaining the money from the wildlife tourism.
Got it. Right. So it's never that simple. So you did some research on
We
actually
did,
putting some
yes.
stats behind that.
Yes, and it is there are also some really problematic actors in wildlife tourism space. There are
Mm.
people who are engaged in pretty egregious wildlife harassment, and when called on this, they will say something like, "Well, isn't it better that I'm wrestling the shark to take a cool Instagram photo than it would be if we just killed all the sharks?" Well, yes, but those are not the only two choices available to us here.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a spectrum somewhere in between all of those. Goodness.
And in Mexico, which is one of the sort of world centers for wildlife tourism at a place called Guadalupe Island, they actually just banned all sharkfish or all shark tourism there because there
Oh.
was so much nonsense happening from the wildlife tourism sector, which had ignored multiple attempts to clean up or we're going to shut you down.
Mm.
And they got shut down, and now they're saying, well, obviously this is bad news for shark conservation, and I think perhaps time will tell.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely an interesting aspect of it where, for people who are the tourists, maybe are only thinking of like the one time thing, like, hey, I'm here now. I want to see this. there's a, you know, a company operating. It's something I did years ago off of Oahu to see, I think, Galapagos sharks, if I remember correctly.
Cool.
Um, and I've also done it off of Cape Town to see great white sharks. And it's one of those
Yes.
things where I was like, I should probably look into the implications of this for local populations of shark and people. And I just sort of did it anyway. And I don't know if that's something I should be, you know, atoning for somehow. But
There are some responsible wildlife tourism operations for sure, but there are also a lot of what a term I'm trying to actually get introduced in the peer-reviewed published literature is macho cowboy idiot. There's a lot of macho cowboy idiot behavior in the tourism community, and notably, macho cowboy idiot is a gender-neutral term. Many of the worst offenders are women.
yeah, I can see that. Okay, I'm connecting my, is this a great white? I'm connecting my Lego shark head to the middle part of its body.
Awesome.
I've got the fins,
Awesome.
I think, pointed the right directions. Oh, nice. I like it. It's like this ball and joint thing, so I can like make it swim, like it articulates a little bit.
That's
That's
cool.
cool.
I'm building some of the side paneling on the submersible here.
Ah, okay. So I noticed that they use like red Legos down the middle of the shark, you know, the part we're not going to see
Yes.
or whatever. It looks a little sort of like you know, modeling on tuna or something like that.
Yes. So some shark species are what we call regionally endothermic. So
Okay.
that means basically parts of their bodies are warm-blooded. And you don't usually think of that as being the case with most species of fish, but their brains, typically their eyes, are warmer than the rest of their body, and that allows them to
Whoa.
sort of process information faster and to react to environmental stimuli faster. And that can be a big
Whoa.
advantage of hunting prey. Though I've been told from some of my friends who do Lego, who work with Lego, that some of the reason for some of this is with the parts that you're not going to ever see because they're on the inside, they just use sort of leftover pieces from other things.
Right. And I think they want them to be colorful so that when you're making it, it's
Yes,
obvious what piece and the directions they've just added. But they could have used
correct.
anything, right? I've definitely put like green and yellow inside of things and not, they chose, you know, red and grays here, which really
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. All right, I've now made a little hatch here for the submersible.
nice. Oh, I like that. So a little Lego person can go inside and dive
Yes, we have
down.
the little Lego scientist.
Nice. Have you ever been in a submersible?
I haven't. I actually almost just got the opportunity. I just got back from a trip to Antarctica, which was totally tourism. Everyone was asking me, like, what are you doing with sharks in Antarctica? Well, there aren't
Ah,
any sharks in Antarctica. I was just on vacation.
good for you.
And this boat had for tourists a research grade submersible. Some of you may have
Oh,
seen the news recently that a giant, I believe it was a Medusa jellyfish, was seen off Antarctica. That was this submersible and this team that found that, which is
whoa.
pretty cool. So that this research company that this tourism company that we did the cruise with is trying to be a real partner for scientists and conservationists in the region, which I appreciate because, as you know, not every um, tour or not every cruise company has a spotless environmental record,
Right. Yeah, that's yeah, to say the least.
to
So
say the least.
yeah, it's one of those things that I feel like probably you had to pay more in order to go with a, you know, environmentally ethical company. But
This definitely was not the cheapest option,
right.
the one that we
Yeah.
did, but it was just great.
Yeah, I had been waiting, so I, you know, went to sea for years and years as part of my work, and I kept assuming most people get to go to Antarctica at some point. And I was like, oh, perfect. I'll go to Antarctica for work. You know, they paid me to go, and it just never happened. Over 11 years of going to sea, I saw it a
Yeah,
few times, but I never actually managed to go. So at some point, I'm gonna have to
it
pay to
was
go to
pretty cool.
Antarctica because it's my last continent. I'm a
Yeah.
completionist, you know, like I
Yeah,
wanna
me
go.
too.
So.
I have now not only been to all seven continents, but I've given an invited professional lecture on all seven continents, which I feel like not a lot of people can say.
No, that's really cool.
Just put
Yeah.
little arms on the submersible here. This
Oh,
is
nice.
fun.
The little grasping claws for picking up
Yeah.
samples or playing chicken
Yeah.
with giant crabs or whatever.
Yeah, or both.
Or both. That's actually
I've now
something
placed
that
the person inside the submersible.
that's awesome. Yeah, I've never been on a ship yet, actually, with a submersible. Plenty of ROVs, which are the ones where they're tethered to the ship and no one goes in them. You're just sort of like video game controlling it from up on the ship, but never actually been
Right.
with one. I've seen Atlantis and a couple of the other ones that like Hui Woods Hole has, but never been on a cruise with one. That would be cool.
Oh, that's funny. I was just looking at this and it looked like there were parts that were cracked. This is part of the outer hull that I'm now working on. But it was
Oh.
not cracks, it was furs from my dog because I've been storing this in the closet, which is near where she naps during the day. So it looked like it
Ah.
was covered in these hairline cracks, but no, it was just dog hairs that got all over my Lego boat.
Well, and I was gonna say maybe it was I was wondering if it was the shipwreck you were working on versus the actual ship, because
Nope.
then some cracks might make sense. Well, this isn't your field of expertise, but I feel like it's been in the news recently about the, last chance to go see the Titanic because it's really falling apart and stuff like that. Is that because of human activity or just that's how the ocean works?
I think generally speaking, shipwrecks are not intended to sort of last forever. If you have something that is a boat at the bottom of the ocean, some things have gone very wrong.
That's
That
fair.
boats are, but if you think of the ships that you've been on and how much sort of maintenance time they have for everything,
Mm.
there is ships require significant upkeep in order to be seaworthy. And when you have something that's on the bottom of the ocean, it's not getting any kind of upkeep, and nature reclaims things eventually.
Right. Yeah. Well, you
But
were probably alive.
yeah,
I don't know exactly when you were born, but I was alive when they found the Titanic, which blows people's minds when I tell them
yeah,
that, younger people are like, wait, you just assume something's always been true or whatever. But like one of my
right.
early, learn how to read books, chapter books, was about the discovery of the Titanic. So
I had that book too. Yeah.
did you? Amazing.
Ballard was in there, a little cartoon, Bob Ballard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'd love to find that in my parents' storage someday because I like remember the images and just being really fascinated by those
yeah.
sorts of things. Okay, I've
Um,
now attached the like last, not the last part because I still got the tail to build, but like a third section of the shark.
nice.
And there's okay, so dorsal fin on top, that one I know. That's the only way I remember what's dorsal and what's ventral on anything. And then what pectoral fins are these other ones down here
Yes, the ones that are like the arms or the
for
pectoral fins.
high-fiving, right?
Yes, precisely.
But then there's some more on this third section before the tail, it looks like.
Yes,
Is
those
that
are pelvic fins. Everyone knows the dorsal fin on the shark, right? That's what Jaws stuck out of the water. But there
right?
are, in fact, a lot of different fins that are available, and they do different things, and they're different shapes and sizes and relative configurations on different animals. There's a lot of biodiversity in sharks, and most of the Lego pieces seem to be sort of the classic shark design, but every once in a while they have these competitions that let you sort of vote for a new thing.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
that's
always,
right.
so I have the Lego ship in the bottle, which was the result of one of those.
Nice.
And I would love to see them focus on some sort of weird and wonderful marine species. So clearly they have demand.
Yeah, well, so one of the other ones, I don't know if you have reconfigured your Shark 3-in-1 at all, but one of them looks like
Nope,
an
no, that is going to stay a shark forever on my end for
okay.
sure.
Yeah, so one of them looks like an anglerfish or maybe something. I maybe is flashlight fish a thing? No, that's something different. But that little bobby thing in the front is like a modified fin, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
like
So
give
there's
him
a lot
something
of cool
original.
stuff here for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about sharks in pop culture since that's my,
Sure. Yeah.
I love a good pop culture tie-in. I even when I don't know stuff enough about, sharks or any topic, I'm like, I'll bet someone watches, obviously the Meg or, Jaws or those big
Yes.
ones and is like, that's just not how sharks would behave.
Yeah, so a lot of the work I do is on public perception of sharks and public misunderstanding of sharks and what influences, if any, that sort of thing might have on shark conservation. And we actually have something in the public policy literature that's called the Jaws effect, which
Oh,
is how fictional portrayal of a real world issue affects how people really think about that issue. And that's called that because of Jaws, that if you ask people to picture a shark, they are more than likely going to be picturing the shark from Jaws, even though that is absolutely not what they look like or how they behave. And that can have a variety of impacts on public perception and of support for conservation. If you think that sharks are bloodthirsty, murdering monsters that are going to eat your whole family if you dip your toe in the ocean, of course you're not going to want to support shark conservation.
yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, it makes sense, right? It's a good horror film in that respect of it made
It's a
people scared of
fantastic
the
movie,
monster.
yes. But
But
Peter Benchley himself, the author of the book that became the movie Jaws, was so horrified by what his movie did to actual real world interactions with sharks, that there were retaliatory kill the ocean campaigns the summer after Jaws came out. And
yeah.
these, Jaws is still referenced in some cases by whenever there's a shark bite anywhere in the world, which also didn't used to be news everywhere in the world before Jaws. So
Ah,
this Jaws terrified a whole generation about sharks,
right. Yeah,
which has
so
effects we're still trying to figure out.
right, exactly. How do you come back from that? How do you, convince people it's just a horror movie? Because
So I talk a lot about this sort of public perception of sharks and their interactions with these interactions with conservation and public support for conservation on my social media pages, which are at Why Sharks Matter on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I have a new book out that's all about this called Why Sharks Matter. And you can learn all about the Jaws effect and sharks and pop culture and what do people know about sharks that's wrong, and things like that. I'm always happy to answer people's questions on social media.
um so I love the movie The Meg. I know you don't have to convince me that megalodons are extinct, right? I believe it.
Yes.
Um, but what I actually really like about that movie is from a scientist perspective, there's so many movies where one person does everything. It's one person that has every answer. It's one person. It's, oftentimes probably if you were to quantify it, a white American male. And
Hmm.
I liked in the Meg that it was an international team. They didn't all get lines, but there were like, a
Right.
dozen or 20 people or something like that on that research station, all with different specialized parts of their jobs. And I was
Hmm.
like, literally, that was the first time I could remember seeing that. Honestly,
Hmm.
it was the first one that felt sort of authentic to me, even though what they were doing was stirring up,
Nonsense.
the
Yes.
megalodon from underneath the thermocline, a term they clearly used but did not understand.
Yep.
And all the other things that came with that submersible and stuff like that. So I was rolling my eyes at part of it, excited about the diversity of characters and also just having a very good time. So I'm excited about the sequel, I guess, personally, but maybe for you it
I'm
just
in
leads
the
to a whole new.
books.
Okay, tell us more
There,
about that.
there is a David Shiffman marine biologist character in Meg 4 Hell's Aquarium.
Amazing.
All right. So the other Lego set that I have with sharks on it is the new Wakanda Forever set that has Namor's throne, which is a megalodon jaw, and it has the one of his assistants who wore a hammerhead skull as a crown. So this
Yes.
was a lot of fun to build.
I did actually think of you with the guy who has the hammerhead
Yes.
skull. Is that, I mean, so sharks are cartilaginous, not bony. So, I mean, is there a skull in a hammerhead shark?
So it's called a chondrocranium, and it
Okay.
basically serves the same function as a skull. And sharks have cartilage, but in some cases it's denser, and more mineralized. So you'll see shark vertebrae that fossilize. You'll never see a whole shark skeleton because they don't have one, but you'll see a shark vertebrae that fossilizes, and the shark chondrocranium, which is basically the skull analog.
Okay. So it is a thing one could wear on their head.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I literally like made a note to
it would
myself
be
during the
you'd
movie.
need a pretty big fish for the skull to be big enough to fit on your head. I've
Right.
now completed the cargo hold section here.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There weren't any other, I'm trying to remember if there was any other sharks in Wakanda Forever. There's like orcas
There were
and
lots of orcas. I actually have a photoshopped thing that is the Aquaman poster, but they changed it so it's Shiffman. And it's my
nice.
face on Jason Momoa's body. We basically have the same body type, right? And they photoshopped all the great white sharks into sandbar sharks, my favorite. This was just a
Ah,
Twitter friend who did this for me, who I'd never met in real life.
nice. Well, so why are sandbar sharks your favorite shark?
So if you follow hashtag best shark on Twitter and Instagram, you will find years of me talking about my sandbar sharks and how much I love them. And you will also find years and years of my scientific colleagues giving me grief for choosing what they perceive as a lame shark to be the hashtag best shark. So
I
I love
see.
my sandbar sharks for a few reasons. One, the biggest one is they were my master's study animal. So they weren't the
Right.
first shark I ever saw, but they were the first shark I ever saw a lot of.
Okay.
And so I worked with them, and that was a lot of fun. But for millions of children, they are the first shark they ever see in their whole life because they are very common aquarium animals. And we know
Oh.
that seeing a shark alive in an aquarium can inspire a lifelong obsession, because it did for me. I grew up in Pittsburgh, pretty far from the ocean, and seeing sharks in aquariums was one of the first time I ever saw sharks alive.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. In terms of, yeah, seeing sharks, I remember the first shark I ever saw, I think in the wild, which was like a little tiny baby leopard shark in like almost like a tide pool sort of area.
Yeah,
And it did sort of have an effect on me where I was like, oh, well, I've seen sharks before, but it was like it's different though when you're not in an aquarium even.
it
But
is for sure.
yeah, so now that's a thing. I live in San Diego and it used to be, I think, seasonal, but it seems like they're around all year round now. There's a huge group of leopard sharks, and I know when you visited at some point, you wanted to go
Yes,
out and see them.
we did get to see them, and that was really cool.
Yeah, so leopard sharks are a little different in terms of whenever I tell people I'm going to go swimming with sharks, or I'm always careful who I point them out to. Like if someone is out there, snorkeling or whatever, I'll be like, oh, the sharks are over here. But if it's like some kid boogie boarding who maybe isn't there saying, hey, there's a shark over here, might, scare them a little bit. But
Yeah.
they come, to the warmer waters to breed is what I've always been told, but they're also like different. They like eat from the bottom of the like they eat out of the sand basically. So I've always been told that their
Yes, they're
mouths are like different.
benthic animals. So they're eating
Okay.
small fishes that hide in the sand, invertebrates, things like that.
Right.
Leopard sharks are you are definitely not on the menu for a leopard shark, but every once in a while when sharks bite people, it's because of what we believe to be mistaken identity.
Okay.
That it those conditions. It was an absolutely incredible snorkel trip that I gave a seminar at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and then we just walked down to the beach, and there were leopard sharks right there. This was very, very murky conditions. I could see
Right.
only about 3 or 4 feet in front of my face, which meant the sharks could only see that far. And it's possible they could see part of me and think that it's not a people.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely not because I live here. I can wait for like the good, clear, calm days or
Yes,
whatever. But when you're only
totally
here for a
understandable.
day, yeah.
Yes,
But I
I
hadn't
was
thought
gonna
about it.
go, and we did see them. We saw a bunch of guitar fish. Sorry, crinkling. Opening the next bag here. I finished
Ah,
set 3, and I'm moving on to set 4. I've been
okay.
working on this for months. It's just an absolutely staggering number of pieces, but I do find this very satisfying.
Yeah. Well, and something I found out just after your visit was that they're great white sharks. And maybe I should have known this all along, that there are great white sharks, right off the coast here in San Diego, a little bit
There
farther
are
north,
great
I
white sharks
guess.
right off the
Yeah.
coast in San Diego. Yes, I went to one of your parks nearby. Was it Torrey Pines? Is that a
Hmm.
thing?
Yeah, it's a state
And
park just north.
it was a beautiful hike, and it overlooked the water, and they had all these signs about, like, yes, that thing you're seeing might well be a great white shark.
Did you see any?
We did not.
Yeah.
That would have been super cool, but
Have you
we looked
ever
for a
seen one
while.
in the wild?
I have seen great white sharks in the wild, but not in California. I did that in South Africa.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's one of those things where it's like, well, I go snorkeling, 2 miles down the coast, so maybe I don't want to see a great white shark in Torrey
Yeah, no,
Pines.
they're there
But
for sure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just because I can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. But
Hmm.
also my understanding is that, I don't actually have a lot to fear from,
Correct.
snorkeling
The
somewhere
little
near.
ones that yeah, the little ones that you find off the coast in Southern California typically are feeding on fish or small rays. It's the
Mhm.
larger ones that start to eat seals and things like that. It
Uh,
goes through what's called an ontogenetic dietary shift, which means they get bigger, they live in a different habitat, their mouth is bigger, they can swim faster, so they go after different kinds of prey. And it's the big ones that occasionally mistake surfers for seals.
right. It's not ever that they're seeking out, human humans. I was told this came up, not this World Cup, but I think the previous one. There's a soccer player who bites people, and I can't remember
Yes,
his name.
yes, you're more likely to be bitten by that one soccer player than by sharks. Yeah, it's
Right.
hysterical.
That's at least what I have heard, and it's a good stat. I know that there's also, vending machines are bigger killers and other things like that. So I
More people are bitten by other people on the New York City subway each year than are bitten by sharks on the whole world in the whole world.
there you go. Okay. So some reassuring thing to get people back, in the water
Yeah,
and
it's not something you need to worry about. But my
right.
favorite stretch of beach where I prefer to be alone, that's really dangerous. Don't go anywhere near there.
Ah, okay. So I noticed in my 3-in-1 shark here that so it
Yes.
also can be an anglerfish, it can also be a squid, and it can also be a whale, and they all have really
Hmm.
different eyes. So the squid and the whale have sort of these googly eyes, and the anglerfish is what is treasure in my current set, these like yellow discs that are sort of space
Yes.
agey. But my
Deep
shark,
sea
yeah,
animals
go
have
ahead.
sometimes can be almost totally blind because they live so dark or so deep that sunlight never reaches. So they either generate their own light, like anglerfish do with that little lure on their head, or they just are essentially totally blind because they don't need to be able to see light.
And so it's just like chemical signals of like, ooh, I smell a snack or something,
Yeah, pretty
or I
weird to think
feel.
about. So a really cool thing, my colleague, Dr. Kara Yopak, who studies shark brains, she's found that the regions of the shark brain that are correlated with different senses are really, really obvious, and you can just tell really easily by looking at them. And it's at the point now where if you give her a given shark brain and don't tell her what species it's from, she can tell you how it lives its life. And she can identify this as probably a deep sea species because it has a really pronounced sense of smell and almost no sense of sight, just from
Right.
looking at the brain shape, which is pretty
That's
neat.
that's very cool. I noticed for this shark, it's actually like what I think of as like a lightsaber piece. There's like a long yellow rod in there
Yes,
with then some gray around it. So it has that sort of, I don't know, dead
they're
eye
very
looking
clever with the
thing that
repurposing.
sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's different about shark eyes than like mammal eyes?
So sharks can see in low light conditions and they can see in murky water a lot better than we can. So we were saying earlier, like maybe you didn't see a shark while you were swimming. That doesn't mean a shark didn't see you.
Right.
So I find that I have been swimming with sharks all over the world, and I find that the most common type of photo that I take of sharks is of a shark swimming away from me really fast, because that is
Okay.
typically what they do when they encounter a person, is they just leave. They don't know what we are. We're big. We're possibly a threat. We're possibly a competitor. Either way, we're not food. So they just have no interest. And that I find that somewhat comforting. But I
Right.
know there are also sharks that I have not seen that other people on my dive have noted have been checking me out.
Okay.
And that's a little eyebrow raising, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and then the tail that I created for this Lego shark is like in two pieces and sort of articulates. That's not
Yes.
is
So that is called a heterocircle tail. What that means is the two halves are not the same size. If you look at a dolphin, they have a homocircle tail. The two halves are the same size.
Right.
And with sharks, they don't have that. And that's because dolphin and whale tails swim up and down, where shark tails swim side to side. And the structure that you're seeing there generates some lift. It helps them
Ah,
stay up in the water column.
okay. And it's a really different, you were talking about like the different fins configuration and sizes and stuff like that. That's also something
Yes,
for identifying sharks too, right? Is like the big
absolutely.
and small
Yes, the
parts.
different tail shapes can tell you a lot about how the shark lives their life. It can tell you a lot about what kind of shark it is. Something like a thresher shark, which you have off California, their tail, the top lobe of that fin, of that caudal fin, can be as long as the rest of the shark combined.
Oh, that's wild.
And they use that as a whip to stun prey, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. So do you have a best guess for this 3-in-1 shark? Is it I
I
mean,
think it's sort of trying to be a generic great whitey type shark.
okay.
That's often the case. When most people think of a shark, they're thinking of something that looks an awful lot like a great white. And
Mhm.
that does appear to be the case here. I have another very critical missing piece.
Oh no. And can you tell males and female sharks apart?
You can tell male and female sharks apart in pretty much the same way you do on a person. That sharks, unlike other types of fish, have internal fertilization and external genitals.
Mm,
So you can look at a shark and tell that is obviously a boy, that is obviously a girl by looking at their boy and girl bits.
oh,
One difference
okay.
is shark males have two what are called claspers, but you will recognize what you're looking at. And
Okay.
they use whichever one is more convenient to where the female is next to them.
Oh, I had no idea. I think I'd heard claspers and seen people identify them at aquariums or whatever, but I never actually knew that was the physical
Oh, yes.
bits. Okay.
That is
All
the
right.
physical bits for sure. And we always used to take high school students and middle school students out on research expeditions with my PhD lab. And we would tell them, like, is this a boy shark or a girl shark? And they would say, I don't know. I can't quite tell if the claspers are there. Then it's a girl. You can tell. It's not
Ah,
subtle.
okay. Okay. I also noticed the gills on this shark, and that's something I feel like I've seen shark scientists be very particular about because if an
Yes, there should
artist
be.
doesn't know, they just keep drawing gills kind of thing.
Yes. Oh God, that was so funny in the Meg. The sharks in the Meg have like 27 gill slits or something stupid. There should be typically there are five.
Okay.
There are some shark species. There's a group of shark species that have six gill slits. Those are called six gill sharks. There's a group of
Okay.
shark species that have seven gill slits. You want to guess what those are called? But
Seven
they
gill sharks. That's funny.
exactly right. But they in the Meg they gave the shark like a preposterous number of gills, and they said, oh, that's because it lives in the deep sea where there's not a lot of oxygen. No, that's not how any of this works. You just got excited drawing gills and didn't want to stop.
Right. Okay. All right. So yeah, keep an eye out. It should be 5. And that is
I have
yeah.
seen people Sharpie their toys to get it right before they're
Ah.
comfortable displaying it in their office.
Well, if someone wants to, learn more about sharks, help with the conservation of sharks, what is your sort of go-to recommendation?
So I want to stress first by saying that there is a lot of unhelpful nonsense about there when it comes to how to protect sharks. There are some of that is spread by well-intentioned but uninformed people. They want to help, they don't know how to help. They Googled it and thought about it for 12 seconds and
Mhm.
started their own online campaign. And that's perhaps not great. But there are also some cases of active fraud where they know that there are people who just Google something for 12 seconds and don't want to learn the nitty gritty technical details. And they say, oh, give me your money and we'll save sharks together. So be careful about that. And if you don't know what you're looking for, my book does include some suggestions on great nonprofits that I love, as well as ways to spot fraud. But the single best thing that people can do to help sharks, I'm making a little control panel here.
Oh,
The
I like
single
that. It's
best
like
thing,
different monitors and stuff.
yeah, isn't this neat?
I like that one.
Uh, the single most effective thing that people can do to help sharks is don't purchase unsustainable seafood. The number one threat to sharks by far, so much so that there's functionally not a number two threat, is overfishing, unsustainable fishing practices. Note that I did not say everyone who cares about the ocean has to give up seafood entirely or we're all doomed, as we've heard from some quarters recently, which is not true and not helpful.
Right.
There absolutely is such a thing as sustainable seafood, including sustainably caught sharks. But there's also a lot of fishing practices that do cause a variety of environmental harms, and supporting sustainable seafood, or just at the very least not buying unsustainable seafood, is the single most effective thing that most people at a consumer level can do to help sharks. If you are a US citizen, another way that you could help is by participating in our participatory natural resources management system that we have in this country. And that means sending formal public comments to the federal government in response to calls for action. You would not know about this from following these fraudsters or by guessing. So you have to follow people who know what they're talking about on social media. Again, you can follow me at Why Sharks Matter, and I always share ways for people to get involved. But notably, there are not ways to get involved like that all the time. We have what are called policy windows. And that means this is actively being discussed now. Now is the time to talk about it. Other things in general that are useful for helping the ocean: reduce your carbon footprint, use less single-use plastic. All of that's great. But for sharks specifically, you don't purchase or consume unsustainable seafood.
Right.
And if you're able to support reputable nonprofit groups, there are great ways to do that. My go-to is Shark Advocates International, sharkadvocates.org. I think it's .org. And at Shark Advocates on Twitter. They're great. And your money really goes a long way. Just
Right.
completed a little staff lounge in there. Those are little chairs
Oh,
and
I
a
see
table.
that. Chairs and table, nice. A very important part of a research ship. You can play
Absolutely.
Dungeons and Dragons or cribbage, or have your
Critical.
dinner there.
Or work meetings and stuff, I guess.
Right, I guess. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that the sustainable seafood thing is definitely something that is good to know in terms of the big impact. And it's also something that's relatively simple. I know that the Monterey Bay Aquarium, I believe they have an app now called Seafood
They
Watch.
do. Seafood Watch. It is a great organization, and those are guides that you tell it where you live. It tells you the most common seafood available for sale, where you are, and organizes it into helpful green list, which is you can eat this regularly. It is caught in an environmentally friendly way. A yellow list, which is every once in a while as a treat, maybe you can have this, but maybe don't make a habit of it. And a red list, which is maybe order the chicken, this is trouble.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be, you don't have to know everything in order to go have sushi or,
Correct.
go out to
There
dinner.
is a
You
sushi
can look
guide
this up.
specifically from Seafood Watch too.
Yeah, so there are ways. Well, thanks for sharing those with us. Is there anything else you want to cover? Oh, what do you got
Does that
there?
show up? This is a little thing that I'm making here that looks like maybe part of a fish tank, but it's little
Oh,
stickers on a clear.
oh, cool. Yeah, I can see like a starfish maybe or something.
Yep, a starfish, a little fishy of some kind, generic coral reef fishy.
Okay,
And there's some other stickers in here. One is a seahorse. So there's some cool stuff on here.
I like that. That's fun. So there's like a whole lab section of that Lego build, it
There is
sounds
a
like.
whole lab that's going to be on this vessel for sure.
Well, you'll have to send us some pictures in, a month or 5 years or whenever you finish it.
A month may be optimistic for finishing this.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for chatting with me today. I learned a lot about
Absolutely. Thanks for having
sharks.
me.
Finally built this. I've had this for years, so I was excited to finally get it out of the closet and put my shark
Perfect.
together. And now I have to find a good spot for it to hang out with the female scientists and Captain Marvel and
A
all the other
worthy
things I've got
collection
up
to be
there.
joining there for sure.
Yeah, maybe I'll put some sort of Star Wars character riding it or something like that. Because there is a little 4 dots up on its head for a mount. So I
Oh
want to try that at
yeah.
home. But
Perfect.
cool. Well, thanks, David.
Thank you.